The Belvidere Mansion is on the National Registry of Historic Places. Construction on this building was begun here in Claremore in 1902. The Belvidere has had a long and colorful history. The building served many purposes. Currently, it is a new project undertaken by the Rogers County Historical Society. Welcome to Focus on Art. I'm your host, Barbara Cohen-Ayer, and delighted you're with me this evening. My guest is Wanda Moore. Wanda, welcome once again to Focus on Art. Wanda's president of the Historical Society. Well, Wanda, it's a wonderful place to be now. The last time we were here, the windows were boarded up, the building was full of trash, and I can tell that the Historical Society has been very busy and things are underway.
Things have started, at least. We're kind of doing some cosmetic touches to it, and we've got a temporary fence around the yard for vandalism, and as you can see, why, we've carried out a lot of things, and you helped us do that, Barbara.
Right, I remember that day.
We appreciate that.
Wanda, before we begin, would you give us just a little quick history about the people that built the building, please?
All right. Well, John M. Bayless moved his family here from Missouri, and he felt like Claremore was going to really be the booming town. He expected it to outgrow Tulsa, really, because it had two railroads, and he had a background of railroads in his family, and that's one of the reasons that he settled here. He also built the first bank and the first, well, at least the largest hotel at that time in Claremore, the Sequoia Hotel.
So he was just a young entrepreneur out to this new town of Claremore and built this wonderful home for his family. Wanda, I think we just need to begin and take a look at what's happened here at the Belvidere and let people have an idea of how many really wonderful architectural features are in this building. With the light, now that we can see what's here, I think it's even more exciting than it was the first time we visited. Now what we're standing in is the front hall, and if we'd come to visit the Baylesses, we could have come through the front door into this hall, or we could have come to the carriage entrance. And I think if I'd walked in that front door, I would have certainly been impressed by all the beautiful things that I see in this room. You might want to describe a few of these.
Well, we have the sculptured tin.
Now, this is the same kind of sculptured tin that people would put on a ceiling in a building of this period. Okay, and beautiful designs, gosh, with the fleur-de-lis and the acanthus leaves.
And of course, the woodwork also has the almost a touch of the same art, doesn't it?
Yes, that's another floral design. I think that's called Rousseau, the way it runs in that horizontal pattern over the door, but it's the same kind of classical design motif. And then it just continues right up over our heads to the ceiling. And
then you have this fretwork. I imagine that a lot of this was brought from the 1904 World's Fair.
I believe that's part of the history of this building.
Yes,
He did purchase some things there. I wonder about these columns and the pilasters. I wonder if those came from the fair. I guess there's no way to really know that for sure.
We've asked several people that remember, you know, back, but they just remember him bringing train loads of things from the fair, and it's marvelous that they are still here.
It certainly is through all these years in the vandalism that's happened in this building. We might take a look over here. One of the things that I think is really gorgeous in this particular room and in the other part of the hall is this beautiful marble. Now, is this Italian marble?
As far as I know, it is.
If we look at the grain pattern in that, that's just really beautiful. It's hard to imagine that this is here in Claremore, Oklahoma. Of course, that just leads our eye right down to the tile floor.
The tile,
Wanda, what's the history of all the beautiful tile that we see in this building?
Well, I know that Mr. Bayless brought a man from Italy to just do the tile work for him in this building. And this is unusual pattern work, which is in several rooms of the downstairs, particularly in some of the bathrooms upstairs. But he also put the name of the building on the front porch, Belvidere, which means a beautiful home. Let's see, wasn't it in with a scenic view, wasn't it?
With a scenic view, yes, I think you're right. One thing that I think is real interesting too are the colors here. I think if Ralph Lauren had come in and designed this floor this year, he might be using these colors. It's interesting how things come and go through the years, and this would be very popular. One other thing that I think is really interesting in this entrance hall are these beautiful doors. You have to be a little stronger than I am to gracefully open these.
The pocket doors.
The pocket doors. Sometimes people think of that as a real contemporary idea. But here we have it in a turn-of-the-century house, and the beautiful hardware. You just can't buy things like this anymore, and I think that's a real shame. What do you think the wood is in here? Is this mahogany or is this walnut? I can't tell for sure.
I'm not sure. I was told it was mahogany. But,
okay. Well, it certainly is beautiful, and then of course with the carving over the door and so forth. Now, this room originally had some beautiful stained glass windows.
Yes, and in fact, the home had 6 stained glass windows, which were stolen, as well as one complete mantel off of one of the fireplaces, and they tried to take another one. And this was right before the Rogers County Historical Society purchased it. So, but I feel like more things would have been missing had we not gone ahead, and we plan on replacing those things that are missing. Not with the original, but at least with as close as we can get to it.
Okay, great. Well, now, Wanda, we might talk about how the house flows before we leave the entrance hall here. We have a big central hall, and then off to my left would have been the original living room. Is that right?
I think they called it the parlor.
The parlor, okay.
And this was the sitting room.
And this was the sitting room.
And then you had a large dining room, which you'll probably
yes, we'll
show
take a walk over there. Well, why don't we go into this room that's the parlor? I think everybody's probably most excited to see what those round towers look like on the inside.
On the inside, all right.
All right. Wanda, this parlor is a beautiful room. I think when you walk in here, first of all, you're impressed with the size of the space. Gosh, what are these, 10-foot ceilings maybe?
Probably are, or at least that.
Wow, this is a great space. One of the most interesting of the architectural details, of course, is the fireplace mantel here. Now, first of all, let's talk about this mantel. It is minus a few pieces, is that right?
Yes, when they stole the stained glass windows, they also took the mantel in the sitting room with them and tried to take this one too. As you can tell, it of course had lovely, you can see where the spindles came and the real large columns on each side. We do have a volunteer that is going to be restoring this for us.
Oh, well, that's great, because and they just, heck, ripped this up. They just made a mess out of it. The tile work that's on this mantel is also very attractive. I guess that's one reason they didn't get the whole mantelpiece, was because of the tile. But I assume that this was laid by the same Italian craftsman that laid the tile work in the rest of the house.
And we can probably match that tile, is what I was told. There's also some tile that's fallen back behind this, little stove that we can use for above.
Was this little stove part of the original part of this fireplace?
I believe it was. I mean, it was cast. Stoves were cast in that time.
Well, it's certainly attractive. I don't know the history of stoves, so I didn't know what vintage this might be. And of course, we have some more beautiful carved work on this mantelpiece. And then, if you're kind of looking down at the fireplace, I think the obvious thing to look at next is the parquet floor. You look at parquet floors today and they're very attractive, but look at all of the detail in this thing. Look at this little pattern. Can you imagine laying that as a wood floor piece by piece? And this is in amazingly good shape, Wanda.
Yes, it is. These parquet floors are also on the second floor. Also.
Okay, well, they're certainly lovely. Now, I notice you're short a few pieces, but I guess one of our local craftsmen here in Claremore will be able to replace that.
Well, so far I've been able to save things that we don't know whether they'll fit back in, or it'd be like working a crossword puzzle. But anyway, I have a sack of some things that I hope we can use. And yes, we do have some real fine craftsmen.
Great. You have beautiful woodwork, of course, the back side of the pocket doors that I find so interesting. And one thing I noticed when we walked in here was the frosted glass window. I guess I didn't know that window was in here. Are there other windows in the house that have that frosted glass?
No, that's there may have been at one time, as you know, when we purchased this mansion, it had a lot of windows missing. So.
Right. Okay, and then of course if we just turn to my left, we look over towards the round tower part of this room, and that's the wonderful architectural feature that you see on the outside. To get in that room, we've got to pass under a beautiful fretwork, and then you're in this, which is a wonderful space.
Yes.
I can just imagine coming to a party here or coming to visit the Bayless family and getting to sit in this round room. What do you think we are space-wise in here, Wanda? About 12 feet across? Would that seem about?
I'm thinking right? more like 10, because if you know.
Right, and it would be used as a sitting room on this floor with chairs out in here and some tables. Is that right?
Yes.
And then what on the upstairs floors in those?
Probably to sleep, because one of the things the turrets are good for is the cross breeze. At night, you know, remember they didn't have the air conditioning.
Right. Okay, gosh, we have that wonderful Rosso carving on our woodwork in here. And of course, we wouldn't want anyone to be in the Belvidere and miss the fact that these are curved glasses in the window. Now, how are we going to be able to replace that, Wanda? Can you still get that today?
Yes, there are probably around 3 companies, even in Oklahoma, that still make curved glass. And of course, you know, the curved glass also is made for china cabinets.
Okay, so it's not quite as bad as I thought it might be,
might be a problem.
to come up with that. And I remember seeing the screens for these windows too, and they're also curved. Are you going to put the screens back on? You're going to leave this open where you have a real pretty view of the outside?
I'm not sure what they're going to do about that. Whatever's recommended, and we just haven't got to that point yet. Right now, you know, we've just been cleaning them, and we have several windows to replace. 69 windows, I believe it is.
My goodness, 69 windows is going to be a project.
We do have the windows donated for the downstairs, so you know, that's going to help us a lot. In fact, the volunteers have just been great, and also leading businesses and things like that that, you know, have volunteered to help us.
Okay. Now, one as we're in here, I look at the walls and I notice that we have some of this rough texture on the walls, but that's a contemporary thing. So that'll all be coming off. Are you going to take the plaster off too and replaster these walls? Will that be done eventually?
Eventually, we'll just do one room at a time. But the plaster is really, you know, heavy. And they have suggested even doing some sheetrocking with just a real light texture on it.
All right, so the color you're putting up now is just to kind of get us through this big Christmas at the Belvidere. And tell us when that's going to be. Just
it's going to open November 1st, and it'll run through December 15th. I know that they're going to be open even, you know, like 2 evenings a week. As it gets closer, I think they're, you know, like December the 1st, they'll even be open 7 days a week.
So
and,
give people a chance to do a little Christmas shopping and actually get to be in the Belvidere.
We have 32 people that are bringing consignments, and many of them are out of state.
Okay. One more thing before we leave here. I suppose this is the old carpenter that I have in my heart. I occasionally build things at the TV station. I think that this is really amazing, this baseboard for this curved room. And I guess through the years the seams have opened up a little bit, but you can see that the molding has been sawed into tiny little pieces in the base shoe too, and put in piece by piece. Wonderful craftsman must have had the job of doing this, because it's really amazing what he was able to do here. You know, you think about putting a room together and you think about going down to the lumberyard and getting a little base shoe. But in this particular case, it has a particularly special requirement. Well, Wanda, anything else in the parlor we need to look at?
I think you covered it pretty good, Barbara.
Okay, well, let's walk over here and take a look at what was the dining room. Well, Wanda, it looks like you have a workman in this room. Well, I know this workman, Phil Renowden.
Yeah, good morning. How are you?
I'm fine. Looks like Kitchen Tune-Up's down here doing a little volunteering today.
Yeah, Wanda and her bandits got a hold of me, and right now what I'm doing is just taking 99 years of dirt and grease off, and as you can see, the grain is coming back up, and I think it'll look real good for them.
Oh, great. What kind of wood is this, Phil?
That's probably pine on the outside, and it's either an ash or a maple in the middle. It's a unique combination of woods.
Okay, Wanda and I were kind of wondering about that when we were in the front hall. Well, it looks like it's going to be beautiful.
Yeah, it really will. The oak moldings on all the doors will really come out nice. That's the beautiful wood in here.
Okay, great. Well, thanks for the good work.
Pleasure. Nice talking to you.
Wanda, this is a wonderful room, and I think as we walk in here, the thing that's going to strike all of our viewers immediately is this gorgeous tile floor. Once again, I guess the work of the Italian craftsman.
Right.
The pattern here just opens up the room. I think it gives you a real feeling of expanse in here. Of course, the high ceilings contribute to that too. Wonder what it must have been like to come for dinner here.
That's right. This is where they would have served dinner.
With the candlelight and the ladies in their Victorian dresses and so forth. It must have been an exciting experience.
It's an interesting pattern too, isn't it?
It certainly is. This is probably some kind of historic Italian tile pattern that perhaps we just don't know about. One other thing we might mention while we're in here, if we look over here at this wall, you can get a real feeling here of where the partitions were when this was an apartment house. Did they have coming out here? Do you know? Was this
A wardrobe closet.
a little wardrobe closet? Okay.
And this room actually made a 3-room apartment.
Isn't that amazing? Can certainly tell we were kind of tight on housing during the war years. Now, as we look here at Wanda, we can see a number of colors. Do you think any of these are the original color of this room?
More than likely.
Perhaps this gold, is this the bottom color?
Wouldn't you think maybe it would have been a gold or an ecru because of the floor?
Color in the tile floor, I think so.
I think
Okay.
that's the way the architect, picked up the colors from the tile, and when they did the decorating, then they all these colors come together in the next room, or the carriage entrance.
Okay, and I suppose if we wander on over this way, we have to note that we are in the corner turret. If you look at this building from the outside, you see the round turrets on the front and the square
And the
turrets.
square, we're in the back.
Would this have been like a little setting area off of the dining room?
It more than likely, or maybe a serving bar even.
Okay.
But probably, I would say it'd be more of a little sitting area.
Well, of course, it's typical of a Victorian architect to have round turrets and square turrets. Variety was the spice of life for them. And this is a wonderful little area, and then it has a door to the outside on the back here, and the wonderful high windows. I notice you have lace curtains up in here. Is that of the period?
I'm really not sure. Those belonged to Terry Neely, and she just wanted something at the windows.
Okay, well, they certainly look appropriate to me. My grandmother's house had lace curtains, and I guess that was up close to the same period.
I would think probably, though, the lace curtains would actually be longer, wouldn't you?
Probably to the floor, you're right.
And these are more modern curtains, probably in the average home would go to the floor. But, the windows are very, as you can see, well, what is this, about a 10-foot ceiling?
Right. Well, Wanda, this is close to my favorite room in the house because of this beautiful floor. But I think we need to move on to the carriage room. That's probably the most interesting space.
All right.
This is an octagonal space, which of course is very typical of the kind of bizarre spaces that Victorian builders put into buildings. I think one thing that's really interesting about the Belvidere, Wanda, is that it really is truly a house of the period.
Yes, it is.
And it's kind of on the downside of the Victorian period or the ending period, but it really is kind of a summation of the kind of things that architects and interior designers were doing. In this room, of course, I think one of the prettiest things is this newel post. Tell us a little bit about this.
Now, Barbara, you know more about these designs than I do, but I remember, isn't this the laurel leaf?
Yes, that's a laurel leaf wreath. That's a very typical classical design. And these are acanthus leaves at the top, and that's called a rosette, and this is dental work. Now you know all I know, Wanda.
I didn't realize this was dental work.
Yeah, you can see obviously it looks like little teeth hanging down. And actually the ancient Greeks came up with that design 500-600 years before Christ. We might move the screwdriver here and talk about this. What do we have here?
Actually, I put that in to hide that hole on top. It had a light there, a little light fixture.
Okay, we can see the cord hanging out
that
here.
came up, and probably I would think had a little frosted globe on it of some kind.
Oh, I think that's wonderful. Little night lights if you were coming down in the evening. Now, is the Historical Society going to replace that?
We haven't even thought about that yet, but sometime on the list it will probably appear. You know, sometimes people would like to donate just one particular thing, and that would be one of the things that could be just kind of icing on the cake.
Okay. This is a beautiful banister that you have here on the staircase, and I know there's a lot of this particular railing, or there was a lot of particular railing in the house. We might mention, first of all, that the stairway goes all the way to the third floor. And of course, when you're in this space, you can look all the way to the third floor. You originally could. And
there was a skylight on the roof, and that's the only place right now that the Belvidere is leaking, is right around that where that glass was. But eventually, you know, we'll want to turn that back into a ballroom again, which would be a large meeting room for the community.
Okay, so the house was originally set up with this would be the dining room, sitting room, parlor level, bedrooms on the second floor, and then the third floor was the ballroom.
Was the party went on up there.
All right. Now, as I look up through that hole, I can certainly see bashed banisters.
We had quite a bit of vandalism last winter, but thanks to Don Story at the junior high school, the shop, woodworking shop, is going to use this as a project.
Oh, that's great.
And they're replacing those banisters around the openings on the second and third floor.
The Historical Society really is trying to involve younger people in this project, as I understand, too.
Yes, right now there's a junior membership going on, and it's $2, and the children have to earn their membership money. And some of the schools are collecting cans. I think Westside has the most members at the present time. 150, at least they have a $250 check, so that would be 125 members, wouldn't it?
Oh, great. That's wonderful. Now, when we get these banisters replaced, they'll be all around the openings on the second and third floor. And of course, you know, I think we're looking up through that opening, and then the other thing to look at is when you look down from upstairs at the beautiful tile pattern that's here in the front hall. Now, you're going to use this as kind of a hallmark for the Belvidere.
Yes, don't you think it would be pretty on T-shirts, Barbara?
Oh, absolutely. Well, Wanda, let's go upstairs and take a look at the bedrooms and the ballroom. Now, Wanda, up here it's a little bit darker because there's no electricity on the second floor, but you have that as a coming up project.
Yes. Well, we have electricity on the first floor, but I did want you to see some of the things up here, such as these spindles that are being replaced, and the real nice sized bedrooms that are on this floor.
Okay, now we have 4 bedroom suites up here that kind of reflect the pattern of the downstairs interior design. Well, this is certainly a wonderful, big, airy bedroom. I certainly wouldn't mind living in here. Oh, you have the frosted glass up here again. We were looking for that downstairs, yes.
We do. And of course, this was one of the original bathrooms that was turned into a kitchen during the, I'd say back during World War II, is when a lot of the apartments were added.
Well, as we're in this room, we can actually get a feel for how this room was divided up into apartments, because there's still some places on the wall where the partitions came up into the newer plaster. You know, it's amazing to stand in a room like this and you can look at almost 100 years of home renovation. And of course, the turrets are wonderful. I think people can imagine having kind of a small bed out there in the summertime with the windows open and the breeze blowing across. Probably the only way to stay cool here in Claremore.
No air conditioning back then.
Absolutely. And we have just a repeat of this room across the hall, and then off on the west side, except we have a square turret.
The square turret's on the west side.
Okay, well this gives us a real good idea of what the second floor is like. I'm real excited to get up to that ballroom
All
level.
right.
Well, Wanda, here we are on the third and final floor of the Belvidere. Now, none of this was original.
No. As I understand, the Bayless, Mrs. Bayless, Mr. Bayless died, and she had apartments built up here for her grown children, and then they lived here until their homes were completed on 4th Street.
Okay, so this, even though this looks very old, this paneling is still not original, so we're going to take this all down. And then this hole that's covered up in the floor here is going to have a banister around it. Is that right?
Yes, and the cover will come off, and you'll be able to still look up and see the skylight.
So we're going to get down this false ceiling, and we'll be able to look all the way up to what was the original ceiling of the ballroom.
Yes.
Okay, well, it's going to be a wonderful space up here, and you're planning to use this for
Just large gatherings. Once it's returned to a ballroom again, then it could be, accommodate a lot of people.
so if you want to have a wedding reception or family reunion or something, you can
Yes,
have it here at the Belvedere. Well, that's going to be a wonderful service for the citizens here in northeastern Oklahoma. You certainly have done a marvelous job so far in getting everything together. What can I say? Send my congratulations to the Rogers County Historical Society for all that
all
you've
those
done.
volunteers that are pitching in and helping.
Okay, and I guess you could always use as many volunteers as you could get.
Oh, yes, yes.
Okay, people to really do work as well as make financial contributions.
Yes. Like I said, even the children are joining, so.
Okay, well, Wanda, it looks like it's a great project and well underway. Well, as you can see, the Rogers County Historical Society is busy with a very large project. I'm sure they would appreciate your help if you'd like to be part of turning this building back into the beautiful structure that it was when it was built in 1902. This is your host for Focus on Art, Barbara Cohenauer, wishing you a most pleasant good evening.